cheated and don't understand anything. Feeling so confused and hurt. The memory of Mom's funeral was still too raw. The hollowness in the house, the echo of her laughter gone, the weight of Dad's silence, it clung to me like a shroud. Sarah had been my rock, a constant presence, a warm hand in the cold. I needed that now. We'd been married 5 years, together for 7. Our lives were intertwined mutual friends, shared Netflix passwords, a carefully curated collection of inside jokes. Sarah worked as a marketing manager at a tech company downtown, and I was a software engineer, coding away in my little bubble. We were normal. Chris entered the picture at Sarah's company holiday party. He was charming. The kind of charm that felt a little too practiced, a little too smooth. He was all smiles and confident handshakes, and he hung onto Sarah's words a little too long. I remember standing by the cheese platter, watching them talk, a knot forming in my stomach that I quickly dismissed as holiday party anxiety. Later that night, I saw Sarah laugh at something Chris said, throwing her head back, her eyes sparkling. It was a laugh I hadn't heard in a while, not since Mom got sick. I told myself I was being ridiculous, insecure. Chris was just a colleague, then came the text. Sarah was in the shower. Her phone, usually surgically attached to her hand, lay abandoned on the nightstand. It buzzed. I glanced at it, intending only to see who it was. But the message was right there, displayed on the lock screen. Can't stop thinking about last night. You were amazing. My blood ran cold. The message was from a number I didn't recognize. My mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. A wrong number, a friend's prank, a marketing text gone awry. But the words, they were too specific, too intimate. I felt sick. I wanted to scream, to confront Sarah the second she stepped out of the shower. But I didn't. I froze, paralyzed by disbelief and a desperate, almost childlike hope that I was wrong, that it was all a terrible misunderstanding. She came out wrapped in a towel, her hair wet. "Everything okay?" she asked, her voice casual. "Yeah, fine," I managed to choke out, my throat tight. I forced a smile, a pathetic attempt at normalcy. Just thinking about work. I spent the next few days in a state of anxious hyper-awareness. I scrutinized Sarah's every move, listening to her phone calls, watching her interactions with me. She seemed normal, maybe even a little more affectionate than usual. Was it guilt? Or was I imagining things? She started staying late at work more often. "Big project," she'd say, kissing me on the cheek before rushing out the door. I'd offer to pick her up, but she'd always decline, saying she'd get a ride with Chris or Emily. David, my best friend since childhood, was the first person I confided in. He's a cynical guy, always has been, but he's also fiercely loyal. "Look, man," he said after I'd stammered out the story about the text, "I don't want to freak you out, but that sounds suspicious. Trust your gut. But don't go in guns blazing. Get some proof." Proof. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. I started subtly investigating. I checked our phone bill, looking for the unfamiliar number from the text. It was there, calling Sarah almost every day, often late at night. The calls were short, usually just a few minutes. I started paying attention to her social media. Nothing overtly incriminating, but I noticed she was posting more frequently, often tagging Chris in work-related posts. Pictures of them laughing together at conferences, grabbing coffee during lunch breaks. Harmless enough on the surface, but they gnawed at me. One evening, Sarah said she had to work late. I told her I was going to grab a beer with David. Instead, I drove past her office building. I waited for almost 2 hours. Finally, I saw her emerge, laughing with Chris. They walked to his car, he opened the door for her, and they drove off. I followed them. They didn't go back to her office. They didn't go to a restaurant. They went to a bar. A small, dimly lit place on the other side of town. I parked a block away and watched them through the window. They were sitting close, their heads bent together, talking in hushed tones. He reached across the table and took her hand. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I wanted to burst in there to confront them, to tear them apart, but I couldn't. I just sat there numb, watching my life crumble before my eyes. I went home and sat in the dark, staring at the ceiling. I couldn't cry. I couldn't think. I just felt empty. The next day, I made an appointment with a therapist. I knew I couldn't deal with this alone. Dr. Evans listened patiently as I poured out my story, my fears, my confusion. She didn't offer easy answers, but she did offer a safe space to process my emotions. "It's important to communicate your feelings to Sarah," she said. "But before you do that, you need to be clear about what you want. What are your boundaries? What are you willing to tolerate? What are you not?" Easier said than done. I tried talking to Emily, hoping she could shed some light on the situation. "Have you noticed anything different about Sarah lately?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Emily hesitated, her eyes darting around the room. "Sarah's been stressed," she said finally. "Work's been really demanding. She's been putting in a lot of hours. Has she mentioned anything about Chris? Emily's face tightened. Chris is just a colleague, she said, her voice a little too sharp. They work closely together, that's all. I didn't believe her. I decided to plan a weekend getaway, a romantic trip to the coast. I thought maybe if we could reconnect, if we could rediscover the spark that had drawn us together in the first place, I could save our marriage. The weekend started well. We walked on the beach, held hands, ate seafood, and made love. For a few hours, I almost forgot about Chris, about the text, about the doubts that were gnawing at my soul. Then on Saturday night, as we were getting ready for dinner, Sarah reached for her phone. "Oh shoot," she said, frowning. "I forgot to tell Chris I won't be able to make that meeting on Monday. He's relying on me to present the marketing data." Chris, his name. It hung in the air like a toxic cloud. "Why does Chris need you to present the data?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm. Sarah shrugged. "He's got a client meeting, it's no big deal. So you talk to him on the weekends now." "Alex, don't be ridiculous. It's work. Is it, Sarah? Is it really?" The words burst out of me raw and angry, or is there something else going on? Her face paled. "What are you talking about? I saw you, Sarah. I saw you with him at that bar, holding hands, laughing, looking at him like you used to look at me." She didn't say anything. Her silence was deafening. "I saw the text, Sarah. I know about the phone calls. Don't lie to me." She burst into tears. "It's not what you think," she sobbed. "Then what is it, Sarah? Tell me the truth." She finally confessed. Not everything, not at first. Just bits and pieces. She admitted that she and Chris had been spending a lot of time together, that they'd developed a close friendship. She denied that anything physical had happened. I didn't believe her. I spent the rest of the weekend in a state of barely controlled rage. We barely spoke. The romantic getaway had turned into a nightmare. Back home, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, my mind racing. I had to know the truth. I had to know everything. One night, while Sarah was asleep, I went through her laptop. I know it was a violation of her privacy, but I was desperate. I found it hidden in a folder labeled Old Projects, an email account she'd created just for him. And there it was. Pages and pages of explicit messages, photos, videos, proof, undeniable, heartbreaking proof of her betrayal. I read every word, looked at every picture. Each one was like a knife twisting in my gut. The details were graphic, intimate, devastating. I spent the rest of the night pacing the floor, numb with shock and pain. I felt like I was suffocating. The next morning, I waited for Sarah to wake up. When she came into the kitchen, I was sitting at the table, her laptop open in front of me. "We need to talk," I said, my voice flat. She looked at the laptop, her face draining of color. "Alex, don't," I said, holding up my hand. "Just don't." I showed her the emails, I showed her the photos, I didn't say a word. She broke down completely. She sobbed, she begged, she pleaded for forgiveness. She said it was a mistake, a moment of weakness. She said she still loved me. "How could you do this to me, Sarah?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "How could you lie to me? How could you betray me like this?" She told me about feeling neglected, about feeling like I wasn't paying attention to her, about feeling unappreciated. She said Chris made her feel seen, made her feel desired. "So you slept with him?" I asked, the words like poison on my tongue. She nodded, her face buried in her hands. "Yes," she choked out, "but it didn't mean anything. It was just sex, just sex." Those words echoed in my head, mocking me. I didn't know what to say, I didn't know what to do, I just felt broken. We started sleeping in separate rooms. The house felt cold, empty, like a tomb. We barely spoke, and when we did, it was only to argue. I told David everything. He was furious. "I told you, man," he said. "I knew something was up. You deserve better than this." I thought about revenge, about sleeping with someone else, about hurting Sarah the way she'd hurt me. But I couldn't do it. It wouldn't make me feel any better. It would just make things worse. Sarah begged me to stay. She promised to end things with Chris. She suggested couples therapy. She said she was willing to do whatever it took to fix our marriage. I didn't know if I could forgive her. I didn't know if I could ever trust her again. But I loved her. I still loved her despite everything. I found out Chris was being transferred to a branch office in another state. Sarah said she hadn't asked for that to happen. We went to our first couples therapy session last week. It was awkward. We talked about our feelings, about our needs, about our expectations. It was a start, I guess. But the mountain of hurt was still there between us. Today, we sat in silence in the car after a therapy session. Sarah reached for my hand, but I didn't move. She left her hand there hovering as she was crying, tears streaming down her face. I looked at her, at the woman I loved, the woman who had betrayed me so deeply. I saw her remorse, but I also saw a lingering shadow of what had been. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if we can ever truly rebuild our marriage. I don't know if I can ever truly forgive her. Maybe we can. Maybe we can find a way to move on, to learn from this, to become stronger. Or maybe this is the end. I just don't know.